I'd finally caved in and had some blood tests done. Now I was back to get the results. I looked up again from my magazine, stifling a yawn. I was distracted and tired. I'd been in Buncrana Garda station until the early hours of the morning with a client who'd been arrested for a vicious assault in the back room of a pub called the Drunken Piglet. I hadn't managed to get to the bottom of it yet, but he was due to be brought before a special sitting of Glendara District Court at 12:30. I checked my watch. It was 12 o'clock. The waiting room had been full when I'd arrived. Now, at midday, nearing the end of morning surgery, only Jim and I remained. The long, narrow window that ran along the top of the front wall was open, and the screech of seagulls diving for leftovers from the lunchtime takeaway trade drifted in from the square. Despite that, the room was uncomfortably warm. It was early August, and one of the hottest summers on record in Inishowen. "Wild warm, so it is," Jim offered, reading my thoughts. He pulled a grubby-looking handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his brow with it. "It's not good for us, you know." "No, we're not really cut out for heat in this part of the world, are we?" Jim shook his head in agreement while using the same handkerchief to vigorously blow his nose. The door of the waiting room opened and the receptionist stuck her head in. "Jim, the doctor is ready for you now." Jim stuffed the hanky back into his pocket, hauled himself to his feet, and shuffled towards the door, raising his right hand in salute. "Right, solicitor. I'll be seeing you." The door clicked shut. I massaged the muscles in my neck and tried not to think about the likely cause of my symptoms. I was pretty sure it was all in my head, and not just because a glass of wine seemed to improve it. Several months earlier, I'd survived an attempt on my life by one Luke Kirby, the man who had killed my sister. Luke was now dead. I'd thought his death would mean I could finally get on with my life, but the relief was short-lived. Sleep had been erratic and elusive over the past few months, and it was hard not to make the connection between the throat problems I was having now and almost being strangled in reality. I'd survived Kirby's attack, but the memory of his hands around my throat in a filthy boat shed in Culdaff was one I was unlikely to forget. I glanced again at the wall opposite, with its posters on nutrition and exercise, and thought how little it all meant if one didn't have peace of mind. I was lost in these cheerful thoughts when the door opened again. The receptionist smiled. "Ben?" I followed her out of the waiting room, past her desk, and through the door of the bright, freshly painted and very blue surgery. Harry stood up from his desk. "Hi." At well over 6 foot, he towered over me. I smiled as I remembered Jim's description of him as a wee young fella. "Any better?" he asked. Yeah," I lied. "It's nothing really. I'm sure it'll just go away on its own at some stage." Harry closed the door behind me with a soft click and indicated the chair beside his desk, which I took, bag resting on my knee. He sat down, tapped at a few keys on his computer, and peered at the screen. His light blue striped shirt matched his eyes, and the walls. Not for the first time I could see why he had become such a hit in town, particularly with his female patients. Dr. Harry was decidedly easy on the eye. He looked up at me, eyebrows raised. "Well, all the bloods are back, and everything seems to be clear. We've tested for thyroid, celiac disease, and infection, but all are negative. Your iron levels are good. There's no vitamin B deficiency." He shook his head, looking back at the screen. "All in all, you seem pretty healthy." "Great." I stood up to go. "So that's it?" "Hold on," he said, motioning for me to sit back down. "I'd like to refer you on to an ENT guy in Letterkenny." I obeyed, sinking back into the seat. "Do you think that's necessary?"